Good afternoon. On what is a mild, grey and cloudy day, it is Friday the 12th of April and I'm in the reading nook with a nice hot cup of tea and a box to continue unboxing. And what I've got in here is this: The Lost Classes, the Arnesonian Classes by R.J. Thompson, a gateway to adventure supplement for use with the original edition fantasy and old school essentials retro adventure game. And as I said, it's designed for use with old school essentials. Old school essentials is necrotic gnomes updating and implementation of basic Dungeons and Dragons from 1981, 1881, the BX version designed by Tom Moldbay Al. So this is very much sort of like of the moment. This is because it's a very popular retro claim. So, in the early days of the world's first fantasy role-playing game, there were a plethora of sources of gaming material. Much of it was fan-created. Designs and third-party supplements became plentiful, and within the pages of these works, new classes were often presented. Some of these classes were added to later editions of the game and became canon, while others were lost in time and space. The Lost Classes series in the greater Gateway to Adventure line of products seeks to revive the classes that fell to the wayside and make them available again in a cleaner format, very much essentially as has been done with Old School Essentials. This volume seeks to create playable versions of two classes originating with one of the creators of the original game. Additionally, two new playable classes are presented in line with the feel of the time of the original game. One of them, namely Ducks, have their origins in another early rule set. So there we go. So yes, the rule set for the other one is going to be RuneQuest. Relatively recently, republished in essentially what was the 7th edition of the game, RuneQuest Role-Playing Grantha. So we have as a cover. So I've got the credits page there. In introduction, before we get onto those Arnesonian classes. And we start off with the merchant. And the interesting thing about that is, that's going to be really good for, buying and selling, of course, but also for interacting with other people. Because eventually, especially when you're outside of another thing, you need to be interacting with people. That's where that class is going to shine. What this doesn't do, although it's written for Old School Essentials, is the fact that it doesn't present the information on just a minimum of 2 pages. It does spread over 3, okay, but that's quite a fully detailed class. And I'm wondering whether or not this might actually work better as sort of like as part of if you allow multi-classing as the additional class, because it opens up sort of playing the the interactive element of the play, i.e. interacting with other characters in the game. So we've also got the Sage. And the Sage has always been, if you go back to original Dungeons & Dragons, the Sage was always kind of like an NPC. But here we have it presented as someone who can be played, something to be played, as a player character, and that was someone who was always have knowledge to hand and be able to inform what choices the player characters and the party are going to make as they adventure. And again, I think it's kind of a similar effect to the merchant. It should be perhaps accompanying a multi-class class, but within certain settings, then it would work otherwise. It certainly does in other settings. I mean, for example, we're going to talk about Beastman class, including the duck-related class that comes from Glorantha and role-playing RuneQuest, and the Lancor Mite Sage there is a perfectly reasonable choice. So also have the Chimpanzee class and Chimpanzee Folk. And the Duck Folk, and I mean that's the one taken from RuneQuest with the Drulls. So we even have a kind of a Duck Master. Presumably he's knowledgeable in the ways of Duck Fu. So yeah. So the ducks. So I mean, let's have a look. Chimpanzees' abilities are essentially get chimp knowledge, crafting, climb sheer surfaces, falling, tightrope walking, that sort of thing. And then the duck folk, no direction, natural swimmer, successful turning the undead. Yeah, that's really very much kind of inspiration across from Glorantha, because you have the upland marshes which are full of the undead. So, and then we essentially, having presented them as possible playable classes, we have new races for original edition games and advanced fantasy rules. So we have them as monsters. So chimpanzee folk, and this is essentially what we have here. Is if I take the duck, chimpanzee folk and duck folk. That's race as class. Okay, that's the whole idea, that you can play a dwarf, a halfling, or an elf, and that's all they are. Whereas new races for original edition games and advanced fantasy rules, for i.e. that is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and its imitators, we have race and class as an option. So we've got the chimpanzee folk as a race. So obvious classes for the chimpanzee folk: acrobat, of course, yes, and illusionist, and magic user, and actually sage. But thief is actually that's maximum of 8th level, whereas the sage goes up to 12th. Illusionist, magic user, acrobat 10th. It would have gone higher. And we do the similar thing with the duck. So actually, you could be an 8th level duck assassin. And so on. The best class for it is the cleric, goes up to 9th. And then we have an expansion upon Appendix N. This is essentially the list of reading and inspirational material. Now, that obviously Appendix N famously appears towards the end of the Dungeon Master's Guide of the for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and has appeared in subsequent versions of the game. This is the Appendix N, essentially as an imitator for the Gateway to Adventure line of fanzines, and in particular these classes. And then of course, open game license. Notes, because I mean, this is essentially, you're not going to make any notes in there. You kind of go, you could have put something else in there, to be fair. And then we've got sort of like a piece of artwork. So I think the one problem is that my grumble would be the last few pages are a waste of time and a waste of space, literally. But that does introduce some new classes to the range available if you go looking for them for Old School Essentials and your other similar BX style retro clones. Of course, they would very much flavour how you play your game. Having anthropomorphized ducks and chimpanzees in your game is going to change the feel of the game. But away from the traditional fantasy, and that's no bad thing. It's all up to you and how you want your game world to be. So yeah, that's the lost classes. The lost classes, the Arnesonian classes, named for Dave Arneson, co-creator, of course, of Dungeons and Dragons with E. Gary Gygax. Fanzine for Old School Essentials. Well, I hope you enjoyed this unboxing of the Nook. If you did, then please do click on the like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I do appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to get more unboxings of the Nook, where you will see me out here with a box containing a book or game or role-playing supplement, or in this case, a fanzine, which I will unbox and chat about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea, then please do click on the subscribe button down below. Thanks again for watching another unboxing of the Nook. I will be back again soon with another one. Bye for now.